Well, this looks like a good spot. What we do first, we get the legs out. Tip the stove back. You can see the legs easily clip in. Tip it forward. What we do, we put the stove exactly in the spot where we want it, and then by tipping the legs back and forward, we're in the perfect spot. The nice thing of having the legs where they clip in, if we have to move it a little bit, we can, and the legs won't fall out. Next, we'll take out our water jacket and stovepipe. Side shelf. When using the damper, you kind of push in, twist it, and then kind of work it out. You see with the riser it's pre-drilled. Line up your damper, run your rod through, work it through there. Go down to set it, put it on the edge of the stove, turn it, and twist. Verify that it's engaged properly, so it'll turn with the handle and not around the rod. Like I always do before, put your center seam to the back, press that down, here's your riser and your damper. Turn your stovepipe upside down so the crimped end's down. Then, what I like to do, I like to put the 4 sections together first. Come down to the ridge. Now this assembled will give you approximately 75 inches of stovepipe. You add it to the top of this, which is another 12 inches. That's giving you 87 inches. Top of the firebox is 24 inches. So in combination, you've got a little over 8.5 feet of pipe. For you folks that are out west on Bureau of Land Management land or a Forestry Service land, you're sometimes required to have a Forestry Service approved spark arrestor. That's very easily done. We have these available as an option. They meet all federal requirements for a spark arrestor. It's easily applied. Now, when Mr. Ranger comes by and he takes a look on the outside of your tent and he sees that spark arrestor on top of the stovepipe, he won't leave you that little note telling you that you can send him a little bit of money there because you're in violation for not having a federally approved spark arrestor. Now to me, this is the preferred setup where you're going straight up. I prefer to have my stove as more of a central location as possible inside of my tent, and also to have as much pipe inside of my tent, because in the colder temperatures, the more stovepipe that are outside the tent, the more draw problems you'll have, the hotter you have to run your stove just to keep a continual draw. So we'll show you now the second alternative setup where we'll use one adjustable elbow and we'll go out at an angle outside of the tent. What I found is my preferable is to have one adjustable elbow right at the top of the firebox and angle it out at approximately a 60-degree angle. Now the wonderful thing about these adjustable elbows, they're kind of like a little toy that you can turn any which way you want So I find if you put it at about 60-degree angle, okay, which will make it come out about 48 inches on the center, is about the optimum height. Now there you're going to need some sort of support because you don't want that just suspended on your insert. So what I like to do, you can either get like a shepherd's crane, an old piece of re-rod, doesn't make any difference, to help support that and keep that off your fabric. What I'm using here right now I'm just using a little piece of wire to secure it. Now what you'll find on this setup is that sometimes, depending on the direction of the wind, it's going to become necessary for you, like say here, if you have a wind that's coming over the trees back this way, you can possibly get a backdraft. But if you take another little 4-inch elbow and put it like that, you'll completely alleviate that problem. And now this is my preferred setup if you're going to go out the end wall. Some people want to use a double 90. I find that by using a 90-degree angle, just like you. If you come to a sharp curve, you got to really slow down. Smoke is the same way. The other thing, smoke was never meant to run horizontally. So this is my preferred setup if you're going to go out the end wall. And I find about 48 inches is the perfect height to go out. You've got plenty of angle, about 60 degrees. And then here, I've got to go out a good 18 to 24 inches from my tent to my stove, and I'm not going to create a fire danger. You can also add this, you can still use your spark arrestor. You just put that out on the end into the 4-inch elbow. And as you always know with the telescoping pipe, you can go any 5-inch component from here, any 4-inch component on the end. Now one thing you can do here besides using wire, you can use 2 crossed green sticks of wood to support your pipe. Another thing I like to use is a large hose clamp. Use your nut driver, which makes it quite rapid. You can put that around. The nice thing with the nut driver, if you decide to secure your pipe even more by adding a screw on each side, you can use that for putting those screws to permanently attach your pipe. So if you get into the high mountain valleys where you got extreme wind conditions, you'll be able to secure your pipe much more secure. So you don't have to worry about waking up at 2 in the morning and doing stovepipe shuffle, which means you're no fun having smoke and fire inside your tent. We always remember, you're using a wood stove in a cloth structure, so you can't be too safe. When you take for granted what you're doing is when you can have troubles. Okay. Now that we're done with our fire and we're ready to break camp, we're going to take the stove apart. 2 methods you can use. You can make sure your fire is good and out, or because of the transport handles, you're able to make sure your fire's died down. You can remove the pipe, side shelf, water jacket, take one person on one end, one person on the other because of the transport handles, and you can carry that out to where you're going to dispose of your ashes and your coals. Now make sure when you dispose of your ashes and your coals that the fire is out. If it is not out, you make sure you either use water or cover it with a non-combustible dirt and make sure that fire is out, because you are responsible for your fire. Now what I always do on here, we'll just kind of do the process in reverse. First thing we do, we'll take the stovepipe off. Okay. One thing I find, if you take your pipe and you move it back and forth, it'll be much easier to remove. Always line up your center seam. Make sure that you don't have that greasy creosote in there, because that'll stick together and you'll never get it apart again. If you're getting a lot of greasy creosote, it means you've been damping your stove down too much and you've had too much of a punky fire. So make sure you burn a nice hot fire at least once a day. To remove your damper, this isn't necessary unless you have the water jacket. If you don't have the water jacket, you can just put the riser with the damper inside the firebox. Pull up on one end, then remove the other. Place your stovepipe in your damper inside the water jacket. There again, your side shelf, pull up on one end. Place your side shelf inside the firebox. Tip your stove forward, remove your legs, set it back down. We're all packed up, ready to go.